Good morning. My name is Ramesh Koka. I'm from iFuture. iFuture belongs to a Singapore group. We started seeing the scope and the potential of the youth in this country. And iFuture started off with a talent development initiative. Over the years, we have grown into different areas of HR space. However, what we see today as a challenge is the people. As we know pretty well, the business transformation, seeing the businesses are growing over a period of time in Romania, and looking into the future, the businesses are continue to grow, and at the same time, a lot of challenges will come in. So business transformation becomes the key. And in this process, people become very important and critical. If we want to handle people, not only we need to understand how to spot, how to nurture, how to retain the talent. So I think this becomes very important over the next couple of years to come. And I would like to invite my colleague and friend, Mr. Basav, who has a vast exposure in this particular field and who is certified as an international coach. So to give some thoughts how we can handle and address the industry. Thank you, Basav.
Thank you. So I'm glad you've done your exercises because I was thinking of getting you to do a Bollywood dance or something, but Ovidio's already done it. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to do something that a speaker normally does not ask you to do, which is to take out your cell phones, and I can see that half of you have them out anyway, but take out your cell phones and get into this site and enter the PIN. So we're going to do a little survey. We are going to see whether Romania is truly at the gateway of technology. So as you get in, you will see that there are two questions. Apparently not. Right. There are two questions. The first question is your company going through a transformation process? And we are going to see the results live on screen. I've been promised as you vote. Are we going to see the results live? Aha, there you go. Waiting for the question. Okay. Yes or no? It's not a very complicated question. Is your company going through a transformation process? Yes or no? For the 94% of you who see some sort of transformation going on in their company, do you actually see an impact on your business results as a result of the transformation, either in the short term or in the long term? Yes? Enter it in the survey. Otherwise, your vote will not count. Oh, my goodness. So, I have to tell you that you are one hell of an aberration, because this is not normally the case. All right? Can we go back to the presentation, please? According to some research by the Boston Consulting Group, the number of companies that go through a transformation process or have been through a transformation process in the last decade is similar to our survey results, right? It's close to 90%. But less than 25% of those companies have seen an impact of that transformation on their business result. So either you are lying or your bosses are here, so that forced you to lie, or you're one hell of an exception. Sorry? Ah, that may be the, yeah. Negative impact, he says. Maybe that's why you answered yes. Okay, so the bottom line is that we all probably know this, but most transformation programs fail. Okay? So in the next, 18 minutes, I'm going to tell you how not to fail. Not really. It's a long, long process. So we have 18 minutes, but hopefully we can think about some of the reasons. So why do transformation programs fail? How can we ensure that we successfully transform? What are some of the elements that we can learn from? And finally, what are some of the tools that you can use so that you can help yourselves in your transformation journey? That is what we'll talk about. Okay? And when I say we will talk about, I mean we will talk about, not I. So I need some answers. Why do you think transformation programs fail? Any thoughts? We will talk about. Sorry? People are not aligned. Okay, very good. Anything else? No commitment. Resistance to change. So somebody else over there? Planning, bad planning. Very good. Okay, so these are all good reasons. Fundamentally, it has been seen that the reason transformation programs fail is the organization's obsession with strategy and execution and completely ignoring the fact that passive unconscious resistance can derail any strategy that you put together, right? So what organizations often overlook is the internal shift that is required to move people along in that journey. How do they think? What do they think? And equally, and if not more importantly, how do they feel? You know, I think Risha was talking about moving people from one desk to another. Rationally, it's not a big deal. But how does that make somebody feel? And that is why they resist transformation. So cognitively, intellectually, you will always have fixed beliefs. You will always have assumptions and blind spots, which is why you resist transformation. But emotionally, there is this huge fear. I think another presenter said that. There is this huge fear and there's this huge insecurity. What is this change going to bring? Am I capable of adapting myself to this new company, this new transformed company? Will I still have a job? Do I have the skills to work in this company anymore? And because of that, I will dig my heels down and resist until the cows come home. And that is why transformation programs fail. Okay? Transforming a business cannot happen without transforming the people in the business. And companies, however obvious it might seem to you today, companies do not often focus enough. They are obsessed, they continue to be obsessed with transformation strategy and how do you execute and roadmaps and colorful charts. Forget the people, they'll come along, that's okay. And if you think that I'm talking about the more junior people in your organization, I would challenge that. As senior leaders or as influencers, I would challenge you to understand your own motivations, challenge you to understand your own assumptions, and I would challenge you to push beyond your comfort zones and your intellectual boundaries. It is often the senior leaders and influencers who are unable to do that who then lose interest in this whole process, and that is why this whole thing collapses. Okay? So, now that we know why transformation programs fail, what can we do? How can we successfully transform companies? What do you need to successfully transform? Any volunteers? Or shall I pick? Anyone? We need to want to transform. Okay, very good. Yes. You need people. Training. You need people to feel safe. Yes, yes, yes. So, exactly. What does transformation mean, right? So there are three things. There are three things that are needed to successfully transform, or three levers that you need to use to successfully transform any organization, or anything, in fact, right? You need knowledge. You need the what. What is it that is going to change? You need people. Who are the people that are going to help you along this journey to change? And you need a process. How are we going to make this happen? What is often seen is that organizations are reasonably good at what. They understand what it is that is going to change. They are okay with who. They're reasonably committed to who is going to accompany you on that journey. But they have very, very little idea of how they're going to change. And how they're going to change, again, bringing the people element into the picture, are these 6 critical elements which are key to successful change. So what does alignment mean? Alignment is the first one, and so I think somebody mentioned that as well in my earlier question. What does alignment mean to you? Come on. Have the same understanding, right? I think Colin put this up on his slide. People need to know where they are going. And I would even extend that to ask why we are going there. Why are we transforming? Right? So that is really alignment. And if you don't have alignment, what do you think happens to the organization? What do you think happens to the people?
They're making scenarios about.
Exactly. So they have different assumptions. They make assumptions about why you want to, and therefore there is confusion. You don't know why you are transforming, right? You also need to engage. How are we going to get there? If to use Colin's phraseology, how are we going to get there? You need to engage. What happens, do you think, if you don't engage? People don't buy in. That is why there is resistance. Because they are not engaged. Whatever your engagement program is, if they are not engaged, there will be resistance. And empowered, if you don't empower them, what do you think happens? There's a big song and dance. We are going to transform. You've aligned. You've created these presentations. This is how we are going to do it. Go along and transform, but you have no power to do anything. What do you think people are going to do? They'll just feel there's going to be a lot of frustration, right? So, I can go on and on, but the bottom line is that without all of these 6 elements, no change is going to be successful. And it is not a surprise that the first 3 out of these 6 elements relate directly to people, to people's feelings. Okay? The other thing to know is that, shockingly enough, we are not all the same. Everybody in this room reacts to change differently. And we have to be able to acknowledge that. As managers, as leaders, you have to acknowledge that the way you react to change is not the way that she will react to change. And there's nothing wrong or right about it. It is just different. So you will have to understand, does anybody know this diagram? Has anybody seen this diagram before? What is it called? There were a lot of nods, but I don't hear any answers. What's it called, this diagram? It's called the change curve, right? It's called the change curve because there's a curve, and it's about change, right? But it takes you from a process of where you are in complete denial about the change to being committed to the change. And there is a science and an art behind how to take people through this curve, which all of us as leaders must learn. And I can guarantee that all of us go through these 4 phases. We might go through them at different speeds. We might spend more time in one box relative to another, but we all go through this. And that acknowledgement needs to exist, that people do not move at the same speed as you. They might move faster, slower, but they are different. And they will react to change differently. Somebody who is resistant to change, for example, if when they are explained what the change is about and what it means for them, may not actually be against the change. It's just an initial reaction. But if you're going to kick him out of the door, then you might lose an opportunity, right? You might lose an opportunity of making somebody who was resistant to change one of the most powerful ambassadors for you for that change, right? So you've got to understand this change curve and how to move people along. Okay, so that's the how. So we have 8 minutes more to successfully change an organization. So what do you need? What are some of the tools that you could use to help you in your change journey? So I'm not going to ask you this, I'll just tell you. So I've divided this into two broad sections. One are some organizational tools, where you can have organizational interventions, and the other part are individual interventions, the individual solutions that you might have, right? So in the organizational solutions, I think, and I've seen this, it is mandatory, there is no doubt in my mind, it is mandatory for the management of the organization to be trained on how to manage the change process. You will not get change without this. Right? The change curve that I showed you, how do you take people through the change curve? How do you take people through denial, resistance, exploration, etc.? You have to do it. You have to be trained on how to do it. And if you think it comes naturally to you, you are wrong. It is part of a training. Human beings, again, somebody mentioned this as well, human beings fundamentally do not like change. So you've got to be trained on how to take people through this. You could also, and you need to, I think, also have training programs out there to the larger population on what that change means for them. Has anybody heard of the acronym WIFM? W-I-I-F-M. What is in it? What's in it for me? That is the critical question to ask or to be able to answer to your population. Why should they accompany you on this journey? What is in it for them? And that is what these training sessions should tell them. Why should they embrace change? Not because the chief wants to change, but something has to be in it for them. There are a whole bunch of external intervention tools to help you through the process, not necessarily to change, but to help you through the process. One of the tools that I quite like myself, which I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes with you talking about, is one called SOFI, which should come up. Colin, how did you solve this green button problem? Press harder. There you go. So, SOFI is actually an acronym in itself. It stands for Spheres of Influence, S of I, right? So, SOFI. So, what SOFI does is it recognizes, again, that people are central to your change. It has 11 spheres, 3 on the left, 3 on the right. The 3 on the left are the internal looking spheres that people work on. The 3 on the left are external factors that influence an organization. And the 5 in the middle are all people, people-oriented spheres. And what's clear is from an internal orientation to get to an external orientation, you've got to pass through the people's spheres. And some of those spheres, as you can see from this diagram, if you can, have blocks, have little road blocks, like we see on the roads when we are driving. They have blocks. So that means that they are not communicating. In some way, it's not working. That relationship is not working. So what it does is it gives the leader a very powerful visual image of what is broken in that organization, what is working, what is not working. And by analyzing this, you actually know where to start fixing the broken processes. if you like, right? It also tells you what's working well. You know, the thick blue lines, they're working well. The thin ones, okay, they're working okay, not too well. So it's actually quite a powerful visual tool to do this. All right, individual solutions. I'm a coach, so I'm going to tell you this. Everybody needs a coach. It's true, and I'm not the one who coined this, right? I mean, there are plenty of people who will. Bill Gates has said everybody needs a coach. Right? Roger Federer has a coach, not to teach him how to play tennis better. There aren't too many people around who know how to play tennis better, but he also has a coach. So everybody needs a coach. Coaching can address some of your deepest concerns when you are going through stressful times. And again, going through change, going through transformation, by definition, is a stressful time, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, right? So working with a coach will help you. If you don't want to work with a coach, and if you want to become a coach within your company, which is also a very, very normal model, an acceptable model to have, one of the skills that all managers should have going into the future is to be able to coach. And there are organizations out there who will train you to become a coach, right? How do you coach? And coaching is not mentoring, coaching is not advising, coaching is a different skill. How do you become a coach, right, to your team? And the last one I wanted to talk about was something called energy leadership. Vidyu spoke about energy and how we should display energy. This is somewhat similar but slightly different as well, in the sense that I would read the word energy as attitude. What attitude do you bring to different situations, and how does that make you show up in those situations? So through a process of an assessment, you will see over here how you show up in a normal situation and how you show up in a stressful situation. This is the same person, and without understanding the meanings of the bars, you can make out that there are two very different persons, although it is actually the same person who's taking the assessment. We are different under stress. We don't always know that, we don't always acknowledge that, and the way we show up under stress is not really how we want to show up as people. But we don't know that. Something like an energy leadership development system will bring that out for you. And you will then be able to see how you actually appear and how you actually show up when under stress. And hopefully when you see that, you will want to change who you are, right? Or what your attitudes are. And you will want to replicate more how you turn up in normal situations, even under stress. And it has a 360 where, they ask the standard questions, where you can compare what you think of yourself with what others think of you along the same metrics, okay? So these are some of the tools that can help us transform. We've talked about why transformation programs fail. We've talked about how we can try and address some of those failures. I don't expect all transformation programs to succeed after this, but what I do expect is for you to start thinking about how you can use some of these tools to first acknowledge why, understand how, and to start thinking about how you can use some of these tools to help you in your transformation journey. Thank you very much.